His mother saw the pattern too late. God had already. Listen carefully. This message did not reach you by accident. There is a reason your spirit felt pulled to stay, to listen longer, to not scroll away. Heaven has been speaking around you for a long time, but now, it is speaking to you. You were sensing something long before anyone else dared to acknowledge it. A repeating cycle. Familiar behaviors. The same outcomes dressed in different excuses. You watched it happen quietly, wondering if you were overthinking, questioning your own discernment. But deep inside, you knew, this was not random. This was a pattern. And here is the truth many are afraid to face, even the ones closest to him, even the one who believed she was protecting him, failed to see it in time. His mother loved him, yes, but love without awareness can unknowingly feed what it tries to shield. By the time the realization crept in, the unease, the inner questions, the subtle regret, God had already stepped in. Heaven does not wait for consensus. While people were still explaining, justifying, minimizing, God was already moving pieces behind the scenes. When divine timing arrives, intervention does not announce itself. It simply happens. Doors close without warning. Access disappears. Connections shift overnight. And suddenly, what once felt permanent becomes unreachable. You were not imagining the resistance you faced. Every time you spoke truth, tension followed. Every time you refused to play along, distance appeared. That was not rejection, it was exposure. Patterns survive in silence. They grow stronger when everyone agrees to not make it a big deal. But your presence disrupted that agreement. Your discernment threatened the cycle. This is why you were slowly pushed to the edge. God often allows patterns to repeat until they reveal themselves beyond denial. Not because He approves, but because exposure requires evidence. And once the evidence is complete, once the line is crossed, heaven acts swiftly. No debate. No delay. You may have wondered why God waited so long. Why it seemed like nothing was happening. But understand this, preparation often looks like delay to the human eye. While you were waiting, God was aligning outcomes. While they were comfortable, God was counting. And when the moment came, He moved without asking permission. Notice how fast things shifted. One season dragged endlessly, and then suddenly, everything changed at once. That acceleration is not chaos. It is confirmation. When God ends a chapter, He does not leave loose ends. You were removed for a reason. Not because you were weak, but because what was forming around you could not touch where God is taking you. Separation was protection. Silence was mercy. Distance was deliverance. What felt like loss was actually rescue. And somewhere in the background, realization began to stir in her heart. Too late. Questions she should have asked earlier. Memories replayed with new clarity. Moments that once felt harmless now carried weight. But by then, the shift was irreversible. God does not reverse decisions once He moves. If this message resonates deeply, if it feels like someone is finally putting words to what you lived, stay connected. These messages come in sequence, and clarity builds layer by layer. Those who remain attentive receive understanding before the next move unfolds. You are not here by chance. You are here because your spirit recognizes truth when it speaks. Do not rush this moment. Let it settle. Because what God is revealing now is only the beginning. And the next confirmation will make it impossible for anyone to deny what was hidden all along. Listen deeper now. What you are hearing is not just explanation, it is alignment. Because once God exposes a pattern, He does not do it to shame anyone. He does it to separate destinies. You were never meant to stay long enough for that cycle to mark you. That is why confusion followed clarity. That is why love felt mixed with pressure. That is why every step forward was met with an invisible pull backward. Patterns do not announce themselves loudly. They whisper. They normalize. They convince everyone involved that this is just how things are. But your spirit never agreed. You tried to give grace. You tried to be patient. You tried to see the good. And yet, something inside you kept tightening, warning you, urging you to stay alert. That was not anxiety. That was discernment activating before your mind could catch up. Here is what heaven wants you to understand now. Patterns are inherited long before they are chosen. What you witnessed did not begin with Him. It was passed down, attitudes excused, behaviors softened, consequences delayed. His mother did what many do without realizing it. She mistook familiarity for safety. She thought love meant shielding him from discomfort, not realizing that avoidance allows cycles to mature. And still, this is important, God does not condemn her. He allowed her to see. Even if it was late. Because awareness itself is mercy. But mercy does not always reverse outcomes. Sometimes it simply explains them. By the time recognition arrived, God had already reassigned your role. You were no longer meant to correct, confront, or carry what was never yours to fix. You were meant to be released. And release rarely feels gentle at first. It feels abrupt, final, confusing. That is why the ending did not come with closure. God knew that if explanations were offered, you might stay too long trying to make sense of what cannot be healed from the inside. So He closed the door without discussion. Silence became the answer. Distance became the boundary. And yes, this hurt. Because you did not want separation. You wanted transformation. You hoped awareness would lead to accountability. You believed love would be enough. But love cannot outwork patterns that refuse responsibility. This is where many people get stuck. Waiting for others to change once the truth is visible. But God does not anchor your future to someone else's awakening. He moves when your obedience is complete, not when their realization arrives. That is why things progressed without their agreement. You may have noticed how calm you became after the chaos passed. Not happy, but clear. The noise quieted. The internal tug of war stopped. That peace was not avoidance. It was alignment returning. Pay attention to that peace. Peace is often the loudest confirmation heaven gives. If these words feel like they are walking through your memories with precision, stay with this message. There is more unfolding, and each layer brings understanding that protects you from repeating what you survived. Staying connected matters, not out of obligation, but because discernment sharpens when truth is revisited with light. Now hear this carefully. The pattern did not break because someone finally admitted it. It broke because God removed its access to you. That is power. What once influenced you no longer has permission. What once drained you no longer has reach. What once confused you no longer holds authority. You are no longer standing inside the cycle, you are observing it from the outside. And that is why others are unsettled. They can feel the shift even if they cannot explain it. When someone exits a pattern without fighting it, the pattern loses leverage. It exposes how much it relied on silence, tolerance, and proximity. You choosing peace was not weakness. It was warfare done quietly. Understand this: God is preparing you for relationships, assignments, and environments that require clarity, not confusion. You are being trained to recognize patterns early, before attachment, before investment, before sacrifice. That is why this message matters now. What comes next will look familiar at first, but you will respond differently. You will notice signs sooner. You will trust your spirit faster. You will not wait for permission to protect what God has given you. And when the next test appears, and it will, you will remember this moment. Because heaven is not finished revealing what was hidden. And the next truth will answer the question you were afraid to ask out loud. Stay ready. Stay attentive now, because this is where understanding turns into authority. What God allowed you to witness was not meant to harden your heart. It was meant to refine your discernment. Many people go through patterns and only learn survival. You were led through it so you could learn recognition. And recognition is what keeps destiny clean. You may still be replaying moments in your mind. Small comments that felt off. Reactions that didn't match the situation. Emotional shifts that happened without explanation. At the time, you tried to interpret them generously. You told yourself, maybe it's stress, maybe it's misunderstanding, maybe it's timing. But patterns rely on maybes. They hide inside benefit of the doubt. God has now removed the fog. Here is something crucial you must hear. When someone grows up inside a pattern, it feels normal to them. When you step into that environment with clarity, you become the disruption. That is why your presence created friction even when you were calm. That is why honesty felt like accusation to them. That is why boundaries felt like rejection. You weren't attacking the pattern, but truth exposes without trying. And yes, his mother eventually felt it. Not because someone explained it perfectly, but because consequences finally spoke louder than excuses. She began to sense the weight of what had been ignored. The realization didn't come with peace, it came with regret. But by then, heaven had already sealed the shift. God does not reverse protection once it is activated. You might wonder why God allowed you to get so close before removing you. Why not warn you earlier? Why not block it completely? Because proximity taught you what distance never could. If God had kept you away, you would not have learned how subtle manipulation can be. You would not have understood how easily love can be confused with tolerance. You would not have recognized how quickly responsibility can be redirected onto the one who sees clearly. Now you know. And because you know, you are no longer vulnerable to the same trap. Notice how your instincts are sharper now. You pause sooner. You observe more. You feel less urgency to explain yourself. That is growth. That is wisdom purchased through experience, not theory. This is why God is asking you to remain spiritually alert in this season. Not fearful, alert. The enemy often tries to reintroduce old lessons in new packaging. Similar personalities. Familiar emotional dynamics. Different faces, same energy. But this time, you won't be pulled in by potential or promises. You will pay attention to patterns. Consistency will matter more than words. Accountability will matter more than emotion. Peace will matter more than chemistry. And here is the quiet truth many miss. You were not rejected, you were released. Released from carrying emotional labor that was never assigned to you. Released from trying to fix what refused to be healed. Released from absorbing confusion so others could remain comfortable. That release was divine. If you feel drawn to messages like this, it's because your spirit is in a season of refinement. Staying connected to truth keeps your discernment sharp, especially when life tries to rush you forward without reflection. Some messages are not meant to entertain, they are meant to anchor you. Now listen closely to this next part. The reason the pattern had to end before you fully understood it is because understanding was not meant to save the relationship. It was meant to save you. God knew that if clarity arrived while access remained, you might try one more time. You might delay obedience out of compassion. You might stay longer than necessary. So he removed access first, then brought understanding later. That order was intentional. And now that clarity has arrived, you are standing in a position of strength, not confusion. You can see without emotional fog. You can remember without longing. You can acknowledge truth without guilt. That is freedom. But do not assume this season is over simply because the pattern is broken. What follows exposure is elevation, and elevation always attracts attention. Not everyone who notices your growth will celebrate it. Some will try to reconnect. Some will rewrite the past. Some will minimize what happened. Do not be pulled back into explanation. Those who truly see will not need convincing. Those who don't are not part of what God is building next. And what is coming next will require your full clarity. Because a new opportunity is approaching, one that looks harmless at first, even familiar. But this time, you will notice the signs early. You will sense the alignment, or the lack of it, before attachment forms. That moment is closer than you think. And when it arrives, you will understand exactly why God moved when He did. And why nothing was allowed to go back the way it was. Stay grounded now, because this is where separation turns into preparation. After God removes you from a pattern, He does not leave you idle. He begins rebuilding your vision. What you thought was an ending was actually a recalibration. Heaven was adjusting how you see, how you choose, how you respond, so you never again confuse familiarity with safety. You may have noticed something subtle happening inside you lately. A quiet confidence replacing the need to explain. A slower pace in your decisions. A stronger inner "no" when something feels off, even if it looks good on the surface. That is not withdrawal. That is discernment maturing. This is what happens when God personally intervenes. You are no longer drawn to intensity without integrity. You are no longer impressed by words unsupported by action. You are no longer willing to sacrifice peace just to feel chosen. The pattern tried to train you to tolerate confusion. But God is training you to recognize alignment. And alignment always feels calm. There is also something else happening, something many don't talk about. When God breaks a pattern in your life, He often uses you as a signal to others. People around you begin to feel uncomfortable, not because you said anything, but because your clarity reflects what they avoid. That discomfort is not your responsibility. Some may watch from a distance now. Some may speak about you in half-truths. Some may quietly realize things they are not ready to admit. Let them. God did not elevate you to manage their emotions. He elevated you to protect your assignment. This is why staying spiritually connected matters in this season. Not everyone around you will understand what God is doing, but those who stay close to truth will recognize it. If messages like this resonate, it's because your spirit is already tuned to discernment. And remaining connected keeps that sensitivity sharp as new doors begin to open. Now hear this carefully. What God is preparing next will require community, not isolation. But it will be a different kind of connection, one built on shared clarity, not shared confusion. Shared growth, not shared wounds. You are being led toward people who respect boundaries, honor truth, and don't feel threatened by accountability. That is why God had to remove you from environments where dysfunction was normalized. You are not meant to shrink yourself to maintain access. You are not meant to dim your discernment to keep peace. You are not meant to stay silent to make others comfortable. If you feel led to stay connected to teachings like this, whether by quietly subscribing or choosing to go deeper through closer spiritual alignment, it's not about obligation. It's about nourishment. Some seasons require more than occasional encouragement. They require consistent truth to steady you as God repositions your life. There is strength in staying connected. And yes, there are layers to this journey. Some are meant for everyone. Others are meant for those who choose to walk a little closer, learn a little deeper, and grow a little stronger. God always provides different levels of access, not to divide, but to prepare. What matters is that you do not walk blindly into the next chapter. Because the next chapter will test what you've learned. You will encounter someone, or something, that feels familiar. The tone will sound right. The timing will seem perfect. And for a moment, you may wonder if this is history repeating itself. But this time, you will pause. You will watch patterns instead of potential. You will observe consistency instead of promises. You will listen to peace instead of urgency. That pause will change everything. Do not underestimate how far you've come. The fact that you can now sit with truth without needing to defend it means the pattern no longer owns space in you. You have outgrown it. And those who benefited from your silence will feel that loss. But God is not concerned with what they lost. He is focused on what you are about to gain. There is a door ahead that requires discernment as its key. Not effort. Not explanation. Discernment. And you are being trained right now to recognize when God opens it. Stay attentive. Stay connected. Stay grounded. Because the next reveal will not be about what was broken. It will be about what is being built, and who is no longer allowed to enter with you. And when that moment comes, you will realize this separation was not an ending at all. It was the final preparation before elevation. Now listen with your whole spirit, because this is where revelation becomes direction. You have reached the point where the past no longer defines you, but it does inform you. God did not expose that pattern so you could relive it in memory. He exposed it so you could recognize it instantly when it tries to appear again. Wearing a different face, using softer language, arriving with better timing. This is the gift hidden inside what you endured. You are no longer attracted to what feels intense but unstable. You are no longer persuaded by urgency that demands quick attachment. You are no longer confused by mixed signals disguised as depth. What once pulled at you emotionally now registers as information. That is growth most people never reach. You see, patterns repeat when lessons are avoided. But when a lesson is fully learned, heaven closes the door permanently. That door is closed now. Not because you became harder, but because you became clearer. And clarity carries authority. This is why God trusted you with separation instead of explanation. Explanation keeps you looking backward. Separation turns your face forward. You didn't need one last conversation, you needed a clean break so your spirit could reset. Now notice what is happening around you. Opportunities feel different. Conversations feel lighter. Your nervous system is no longer bracing for emotional unpredictability. That constant sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop is fading. This is what alignment feels like when it finally settles into the body. Peace is not boring. Peace is stable. Peace is powerful. And here is what many don't expect. When you step fully into peace, it exposes unrest in others. Some will feel drawn to you. Some will feel threatened. Some will suddenly want access again, not because they've changed, but because they feel the shift in you. Discernment will tell you the difference. God is not asking you to shut people out indiscriminately. He is asking you to stop overriding what you now clearly see. You prayed for clarity, and He answered. Honor that answer. If you continue to stay close to truth, to messages that sharpen discernment and keep your spirit anchored, you will notice something remarkable. Decisions will require less effort. You won't need signs stacked on signs. You won't need to ask 10 people for validation. Peace will confirm faster than emotion ever did. This is why consistency matters in this season. Not perfection, consistency. Staying connected to what feeds clarity keeps you from drifting back into old tolerances. Even a quiet commitment to remain connected, to keep receiving truth regularly, strengthens discernment more than you realize. Now hear this final revelation carefully. The title of this message wasn't just about her seeing too late. It was about God moving early, for you. He moved before the pattern could follow you forward. He moved before repetition could become destiny. He moved before what harmed others could harm you. That is favor disguised as disruption. You were spared from becoming a chapter of regret. You were redirected into a future that requires awareness, not endurance. And what lies ahead will feel different, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. Honesty will be the foundation now. You will be able to ask questions without fear. You will be able to set boundaries without guilt. You will be able to walk away without explaining yourself. This is the fruit of discernment fully formed. And when you look back one day, not with pain, but with perspective, you will realize something profound. The pattern did not end your story. It clarified it. What God is bringing next will confirm everything you sensed but couldn't yet prove. It will feel calm, mutual, grounded. No chasing. No confusion. No need to shrink or overextend. Just alignment. Stay watchful. Stay anchored. Stay open, but not unguarded. Because the next door God opens will not resemble the last one at all. And when it opens, you will understand why it had to end exactly the way it did. And this time, you will see the pattern early. And walk forward without hesitation.